Hello and welcome to the Roundtable, the Instructional Story Design Roundtable focused on the critical role of conflict. Today is a discussion. We are instructional designers, we are facilitators, and we all believe in humanizing the learning experience through storytelling. And the core of what we're going to be discussing today is found right here in this book called Instructional Story Design. How many of you have the book? If you have the book, raise your hand. Stacy, you are my model. Oh, that's awesome. Maybe we'll take like a picture at the very end. Everybody can hold up their books. So the book today, the part of the book today that we are going to be focusing on mainly is going to be chapter 6. So lots of people have the book. That's awesome. Phil, oh my gosh, it's great to see you, man. How are you? Phil, don't leave me high and dry. How are you doing? Okay, maybe you can't come off mute. Well, I'm glad you're here from the UK. I'm excited that you joined us today. Let's get started into, I want to give those of you who are maybe new to instructional story design a very quick tutorial. And those of you who are very familiar with it, you can help out. So the purpose of story design is to create stories for training that actually train. So we're going to start with the story design model. And those of you who are familiar with are like, yep, I know this. So at the top, we have story. And at the bottom, we have the action that we want people to take as a result of training. That's what that action is all about. So when we think about the story itself, what are the elements of a story that must be present in a story for training? And you can unmute yourself and we can talk about that, or you can type your answer in the chat. Think about the elements of a story. If you're new to instructional story design, that's okay. What are the elements of a story that make a story a story?
A conflict.
Shannon, yes, the conflict, absolutely.
Relatable characters.
Tina, I love you. Yes, the relatable characters. And so those two things, characters and conflict, yes, Shamail, thank you for kind of summarizing that, are the two elements of a story that must be present in a story for training. So relatable characters plus strong conflict. Relatable characters plus strong conflict. These are the story elements that must be present in a story for training. When you experience relatable characters that you care about, and they are in conflict, what does that produce inside of the viewer of the story, the watcher, the reader of the story?
Emotion.
Emotion. There's an emotional connection there. What else? How would you describe that feeling?
A need to resolve the problem.
Yeah, need to resolve. And then Shamail, you put it into the story design terms that we use for that, which is a desire for resolution. Yes, need it to be resolved. So when your story puts relatable characters into strong conflict and produces this desire for resolution within the learner, the story has done its work. And now there's this gap that needs to be filled up. What goes in that gap? For those of you who already know. What goes in that gap? What completes the connection to the action that we want people to take? Yeah, that's a good description of desire for resolution as well. Like we have this empathy for the characters, and so we want them to succeed. what goes in that missing gap is instruction. That is where training comes in. So a story that contains relatable characters and strong conflict produces a desire for resolution. And then that opens up the learner for training, to receive the training, and to take action on that training as well. And the part that we're going to focus on in today's roundtable is right here. Strong conflict. We have, I have students that come through the School of Story Design. I have candidates for instructional story design certification, and we talk a lot about strong conflict. Whenever I'm doing a workshop on instructional story design, this seems to be the one thing. Hello, Katerina. It's nice to see you again. The one thing that many people struggle with is creating a story that contains conflict. Now, when we think about the two elements of a story, relatable characters, we don't just pick those characters out of thin air, right? We do an audience profile for our learners. We learn who they are, yes, as intellectual beings, but we also get to know who they are emotionally. You know, what current circumstances are they in at work? How are they reacting to those circumstances? You know, what are their fears right now? What are their values? And all of this information about who they are as people will inform our instructional design, but it will also give us a really good idea about the type of characters that need to appear in this story. They need to be, like Leah said, we need to have empathy for these characters. Putting those characters into strong conflict. Now, we're not just going to randomly assign conflict to these characters. It's going to be a very focused conflict. And we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, I'd like to just hear from you. Why do you think, maybe you experienced this yourself, maybe you have this aversion to including conflict in your story, or maybe your subject matter experts have an aversion to it. They just don't want to include it, or you don't want to include it in your stories. Why? Why do you think?
Maybe a discomfort with the negativity of it, that they don't understand that it's actually placed there for a reason.
That's a wonderful way to put it, Leah. A discomfort with the negativity of conflict. Molly says, yes, strong pushback against conflict, afraid of offending learners, afraid of offending. Yep. What
But
other?
ironically, especially in sales and sales enablement, they are constantly handling objections and building those objections into the story. I'm trying to do that. And yeah, my SME's like, I don't know.
Right. There's a disconnect between what the SME might be perceiving and reality. There's actually conflict in life. Oh, yeah. Good. What else? What other reasons? Kathleen says they don't want to reinforce conflict that already exists. Oh man, I've heard that one before too. That's a great one. Molly, learners in my world personally pay for learning. Okay. What does it have to do with conflict though? Can you explain that a little bit, Molly? They think this is going in the wrong direction. Okay, good, Katerina. Don't want to offend them. Oh, okay, don't want to offend people who are going to be paying for this. Yeah. Gotcha. I have heard all of these reasons, like we don't want to demonstrate an incorrect way of doing things. We don't want to imply that our employees might do something wrong. I've actually heard somebody say that. Why are you training them then if everything is going great? just like it doesn't align with our culture. I've heard that before. Or we don't want to make people feel bad. I've heard that as well. And then also, we don't need drama, just give them the facts. So a lot of reasons why people resist conflict. And even within ourselves, perhaps we might feel that that urge to show a very seamless experience where everything goes right. That's in our hearts, right? As instructional designers, we want to demonstrate the correct way of doing things. But demonstrating the correct way of doing things is not necessarily the most effective way of training people to do something new. Amber says, in our organization, they shy away from showing any wrong answers and sometimes only want us to show the right behavior of a skill or task. Right? So it becomes that's a good point, Amber. It's a very one-sided, idealistic worldview of how things work. Nothing else goes wrong. Everything goes exactly as it should. And that just ain't life, right? Stacy, sometimes sharing conflict reveals the warts that people want to keep hidden as it's not good publicity. Yeah. Don't want to face that we're actually might be doing something a little bit wrong. Good. Amber says we call it the happy path, which isn't simulating real world scenarios. Yeah. I'm going to call it that for the rest of this roundtable. The happy path. Okay, good guys. Good. So there are two reasons why stories fall flat in training. That's truly that is so true. Making mistakes and learning from them ought to be embraced. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we learn really so well from our mistakes and not so well from what we do perfectly. So one of the reasons why conflict is not included in training are the reasons that you've already articulated. There's just an attitude of, we don't want any kind of conflict in our story. The other reason why stories kind of fall flat or the conflict is not as strong as it could be is because the action list is not in good order. So I use the word action list to describe the actions I want people to take as a result of training. You may call it performance objectives, you may call it a task list, learning objectives, whatever you call it. I call it an action list. My team calls it an action list. I train my stakeholders to call it an action list because I want everybody involved to remember that we are training people to do things. So I'm going to share with you an example of an action list that I have seen more than once. Stacy, can you see my screen? It says the critical role of conflict. Okay, you got it. Cool. Thank you. So let's look at a sample action list. And the instructional designer has been given the task of creating a course for conducting one-on-ones, managers conducting one-on-ones with their direct reports. So this is what they put at the top, one-on-one meetings. And then they interview the subject matter expert to figure out what's going on, or they do research. And this is the first action on the list. Put yourself in a good state of readiness before they show up. Be aware of how they feel. Understand the available development opportunities. Avoid disruptions during the meeting. Be empathetic. Organizations that coach prosper. So many of you are seasoned instructional designers. What is standing out to you about this action list right now? Anything you would change about it? So Amber says the list does not give actions to achieve. How? Alana says very disjointed. Leah says more verbs. Stacy says use verbs that are seeable. Molly says,
Yeah, how do you know someone understands something? Like, how would I know that?
how would you
That
know that,
that
Tina?
I would need to know, what does that look like? If one person understands it and one person doesn't, what does that look like to me? Because that word
Right.
understand,
I don't
that's
understand.
not an action to me.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're totally on point. I think that you just gave the perfect follow-up question to the subject matter expert. Okay, what does somebody who understands the available development opportunities do? What do they say? What, and as Stacy, you said, what can I watch them do? What can I hear them say? Good. So, and then Phil, you're back. Yay. I'm so glad you joined. So to put it in Phil's words, they're not observable. These are not observable. And yes, Alana, specific and observable. They're two way up here, right? How does one be? All right, be empathetic. What is that? What are the measurable or the observable actions there? And Gisela, you make a good point. These aren't measurable either, right? So we have be aware, this very general kind of be aware. It's just awareness training. That's marketing, right? It's not training. You have understand, which Tina pointed out, we need to know what that looks like. What are the observable actions? And we have like a non-performance objective, avoid disruptions. Like we can't train people to do that. We have to give them something to do. Then we have the state of being. And then this last one is interesting. Organizations that coach prosper. So that is not something that the learner for this course can actually do, but it might be good to put it in the course as why this course is so important. So whenever you have something coming out of your subject matter expert's mouth that sounds like importance or purpose or the benefits of doing these things, put them on a separate list. I call it PIBs, purpose, importance, and benefits. You can be listening for those things during the subject matter expert interview, because those will, I'm going to type that in the chat. There you go. Purpose, importance, benefits, and similar to. So if you hear them saying things like, why this course is so important, or this is why we need to train them on this, or if they do this, this will be the benefits to the person who's doing it, or to the company, or to the team. And then similar to is if they're using metaphors to describe something that is unfamiliar with something that is familiar, that would be a similar to. So PIBs. Have your PIBs list and have your action list. And get those PIBs off of the action list because those are not observable actions. So if the instructional designer who was creating this course took your advice and went back to the drawing board and said, hey, subject matter expert, let's convert this into an actual action list. And so the action at the top, conduct one-on-ones, is the main action. Okay, that's what we're going to train you how to do. So prepare for the meeting. All right. Let's take, one of you said something more specific, right? So let's drill down. What do we mean by that? Okay, review the coaching form. Okay, so that means they have something already that they can view to prepare for this. Go ahead and review that form. Silence your phone, turn off your computer screen. So there's a lot of things that could go underneath prepare for meeting, but these are some examples. Welcome them into the space could be another action. Give them your undivided attention. You might want to break that down for them. Demonstrate empathy during the meeting by asking yourself, do they seem comfortable? Is anything distracting them from the meeting at hand? Is there something I can say or do? Put them at ease about anything that's on their mind. And then lastly, ask them for their ideas on how they can grow. This isn't a complete list, obviously, but it is an example of observable actions that you can do or say. Prepare, welcome, give, demonstrate, ask. You can do all of those things. You can hand this to somebody, and then you can watch them do it. You can listen to them say it. That's where a lot of stories fall apart, is because they're working on the previous action list, right? Where it's be aware. How are you going to put somebody in conflict with be aware? Or put somebody in conflict with understand? Because the goal here is to put our relatable characters into conflict with these actions right here. Prepare, welcome, give, demonstrate, and ask.
Right, Rance, is the demonstrate one, for me, that's still not observable because they're asking themselves. How would I see that?
Oh, that's a great question, Phil. So demonstrate empathy during the meeting by asking yourself, do they seem comfortable? Is anything distracting them from what's at hand? You might be onto something there. I might need to revise this list.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I want to share with you a tool that I was just introduced to by Megan Torrance. You might know Megan. She and I were speaking at a conference together, and we just had a follow-up call just to touch base with each other. And she shared with me a very interesting tool. And you can, wait, that's the wrong one. I want this one. It's called goblin.tools. And it was originally created to help people who struggled to break down big tasks and do a bunch of other stuff. There's a lot of things up here, but the one we're going to look at today is Magic to Do. Second, let me make sure you guys. Okay. Oh, she's presenting at GameCon. Okay, cool. So the way this works is you put in a task and then it breaks down that task into smaller tasks. And when she showed this to me, I was like, oh, the first thing that came to my mind was this session. Like, instructional designers often are given, like I was just meeting with one of the candidates for instructional store design certification. And she told me that she was given this project on problem resolution. And that's all she had. So she wisely set up a meeting with the director who requested this training and is going to dig a little bit further and get some more details. But let's say that you are tasked with doing a training on conducting one-on-ones. So you can come into Goblin Tools and let's say that you're not given a whole lot of information. So conduct one-on-one meetings with direct reports. Put that in there. And then there is this little magic tool here. It's a little magic wand that says breakdown item. And it generates an action list. Isn't that cool, Stacy? So schedule meeting times with each direct report, prepare an agenda, meet with each direct report individually. That seems a little like not right. So I'm going to mark that one out. Listen to feedback and concerns. Okay, I want to dig down on that one a little bit more. So listen to feedback and concerns. I'm going to hit the wand again. You guys are loving this. I am so happy that you feel the same way I do, because I was like, this is amazing. Okay, listen to feedback and concerns from direct report. It generates another list underneath that. Now, obviously, we don't need schedule one-on-ones again. We don't need this. Create a comfortable and open environment for discussion. Might want to keep that one. Actually, no, I want to put that one up here as an action that comes before listen to feedback. So I'm going to click and drag it up there. Actively listen. So that's what we're talking about here. Here we go. Ask clarifying questions. That's a keeper. Provide support and reassurance when necessary. Not bad. Take notes. Not bad. Reflect on the feedback and concerns. You know, maybe not. And we'll get to the follow-up later in the list. And then I can go through and just, you know, delete all these ones I don't want. And here I'm like refining my list, right? So the way I view AI type tools is non-human collaborators, right? I can come to the non-human and I can use this tool as a place to start, creating my action list if I need to do that. And then I can download this list and make adjustments to it, but it's a great place to start. And if your subject matter expert is struggling to articulate what they want, you can put this in front of them and say, is this what you mean? Is this what you want people to do as a result of training? Give them something to react to. So goblin.tools, free tool. And so I saw, okay, Alana, I just had it break down how to clean the kitchen. My kids will hate this. Speaking of the kitchen, there's also a place here called Chef where you can put in ingredients that you have on hand and it'll create a recipe for you. It has a lot of things like, you know, this is for people who maybe also can't like read the tone of an email. And so they can, or their own texts, and they can type it in there and then it'll give a judgment call of how it's coming across. So a lot of cool things in here, but I wanted to just demonstrate the magic to do. Cool. Oh, good, Kim. You've already knew about this tool. That's awesome. So we can use it as instructional designers to help us focus on those actionable things. So, yay! Thank you, Alana. All right, I want to actually demonstrate. So those are the two reasons: attitude and the action list. These two reasons are why our conflict fails to deliver in our stories. Either we shy away from it, or our action list is not in good shape. So let's see an example of a story. So I want you to kind of put on your conflict glasses. I want you to view this story to see if, just make observations, you know, and look for that conflict, and also note, how is this story making me feel as I listen to it? Here's how the course begins. Pretty straightforward. The wonderful page of learning objectives that we all see, love. And then the story. Oops. Are you guys hearing anything? Okay, let me reshare and share sound. Sorry about that. And let's restart the video.
Hi, Natalia. Come on in.
Thanks, Colin.
How's your week going so far?
Pretty good. I just had a difficult call, so I'm a bit flustered.
Would you like to talk about it?
It wasn't terrible, but yeah, the customer was really mad that they didn't get refunded. And I get it. It's just not fun to get shouted at.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Were you able to help them?
Yes, Brooke helped me out. The issue is resolved.
But I'm guessing they didn't thank you?
How did you know?
I've been there. Listen, if now is not a good time, we can reschedule this check-in for later.
No, I'm good now. We can talk. Thanks for listening.
No problem. We've got some great things to talk about your performance. But before we jump into that, I sent you some questions a couple of weeks ago to consider during this one-on-one. Have you had a chance to think about those?
Yes, thank you for the heads up. I always get really nervous with check-ins.
Natalia, there aren't going to be any surprises during this conversation. You and I have had touch points ever since you were hired 5 months ago. We've talked about your strengths and your areas where you can grow.
I appreciate that. I had time to think through your questions, and I do have some ideas about how I might be able to grow here.
Great. I'd love to hear those ideas.
Well, I know I ask for help a lot, and I'd like to work on that. Be a little more resourceful.
Okay, let's talk about that story. How did you feel at the end of that story?
Like there might actually be a positive outcome from it. Like I was waiting to see what she got from it.
Yeah. Yep, good. It's a very positive interaction, Kanisha. Yep. Good. Was there conflict? The fact that you are all very silent right now is quite telltale. Melissa, I felt that he was present and checked in with her to make sure she was okay to have a conversation, which I appreciated. Leah, maybe in that she was upset. Maybe the conflict was that she was upset. Okay. Any other observations?
I'm going to jump in here. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but it felt like an Leave It to Beaver episode to me. Because it felt like it was just too scripted. And I hope this isn't your model of what we're supposed to do, because it felt like there wasn't enough conflict to me.
Yeah. Don't worry. There's a version 2 of this. Stacey's like, oh no. Okay. Katarina says, I have always waited for something. I'm waiting for something to happen. Right. Good. It's a little on the side of the employee and her fears, a little bit of conflict there. Like the part where she was offered to reschedule. Yep. I felt bad for her at the end. It was too perfect. He said all the right things to support her. Very nice manager, but not realistic. Okay, good. Good, guys. So yeah, I mean, you didn't really feel much, right? I mean, there was hardly any emotional connection to this. And the only conflict resided with the character who represents someone who won't even be taking this course. Right? Natalia. Natalia is not, the customer service representative is not going to be taking this course. So the conflict is misplaced. It's on Natalia, it's not on the manager. Not at all like my one-on-ones. Wouldn't we all like one-on-ones like that, where everything just went so swimmingly? And the fact that we are training managers on this because there is a problem you know, that problem is not present at all. There's no external pressures. There's nothing represented here that the managers are going to say, ooh, you know, I can relate to that for sure. Yeah, I struggle with that. Stacey, I also wanted to add that the conflict made me kind of angry because there was a male-female stereotypical patriarchic dynamic. Oh my gosh, that was a mouthful. True, but there are also real men managers and real women customer support people. What are they doing now? What should they be doing? Good, Alana. Yeah, that's great. Those are some great questions to ask your subject matter experts. What are they doing now? Find out that conflict story. What is going on right now? What is the real problem? That's what we are, right? We're business partners who solve problems. So when you are asking about those problems, take note of those things. Have the stakeholder kind of, or the subject matter expert, take you through a story. Tell me about a story. Tell me about this customer service representative. What's going on? Tell me about this manager. How are managers handling this right now? Excellent, guys. You're spot on. And really, where do we go from here? Now that we've shared this story, what do we do? What do we do with this story? How do we train with this story? Basically, we're gonna just have to tell a whole bunch of stuff. There's nowhere to go here from this story because the conflict is missing. So let's not end it on a dissatisfied note. Let's see version 2 of this. He's the model for most explainer videos. Yeah, that is true. Okay, so here's version 2. Hi, Phil. Thanks for showing yourself. So here's the title page for the course. And we go right into the story. So here is the story.
Hi, Natalia. Come on in. What's up?
I'm here for my one-on-one.
Sorry, yeah. I've been working on a report for management and sorry, time just slipped by so quickly.
Should I come back another time?
No, we can do it now. Just let me get your file. There it is. Okay, how's it going?
Well, I'm a bit flustered after the call I just took. They were pretty mad.
Yeah, sometimes there's just no calming them down. You know, you can escalate those calls if you need to.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like you've made some progress over the last 5 months. Great work. One thing you need to work on is using the resources online more proactively.
I know. I've been working on that.
I know it's difficult to put yourself out there and walk on your own, but all of our customer advocates have to face their fears, so to speak, and trust their training.
Yes, I understand. It's not fear. I'm still getting the resources under my belt for all of the systems we operate.
I'm sorry, Natalia. Hold on just a sec. It's just a quick ping from my manager. Yes, I'll have the report for you in an hour. Sheesh, you'd think the building was on fire with those guys. What were you saying now? You understand? That's good, that's good. Let's review your production numbers. Last month was a lot better. That's great. You're really improving, Natalia. If you can get call times down a few more minutes, you'll be rocking it.
All right, I'm going to share with you what training comes after the story, but let's stop for a moment and I'd like to hear your observations about that story. Yeah, Leah, this is why he needs training. Yeah.
That felt very uncomfortable.
Good.
But also relatable. Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Relatable in that
I can see managers not being prepared for a meeting,
yeah.
And it almost being like a not that it's not a big deal, but that someone walks in and they're kind of excusing themselves straight away. Oh, I've just got to do this and I'll be right with you. And it's almost like that kind of socially acceptable, I'm not thinking of you right now, you know?
Oh, what a great way to put that, Phil. Thank you. Katarina says, I immediately felt for Natalia. That felt like a lot of my one-on-ones. The scenario sticks in my mind more so now than the previous video. Why does it stick with us? We'll talk about that. It may show a manager what the other side sees for the first time. That's interesting, Alana. That's an interesting way. Yeah, it's kind of like, because now they're like a third person watching the story unfold and they can see both characters now. Good. I put myself in Natalia's shoes and thought about when I've been in that situation. Nice, Stacy. There wasn't really a two-way conversation, Molly. Yep. It was hard to watch, so uncomfortable, yet realistic. So would you say, oh, go ahead.
Is it okay if I do a verbal comment?
Please do, Kim. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's also, it could also potentially set itself up for other, like, if this is, this obviously looks like e-learning, instructional design activities, because I could see potentially there being an activity of evaluating, where the
Yes.
manager could improve or what they did wrong. We might not phrase it as what they did wrong, but essentially that's what it is. Because I feel like there are managers that do that exact thing every day and they don't realize it, but it's easier to criticize someone else or when you're outside yourself than it is to do it for yourself. But in that, they may think, after they critique this manager, they may be able to self-reflect and think, oh, maybe I should start,
Right.
utilizing some better practices. And then thus we've, achieved our goal of the training.
Yeah, excellent. So Kim, you're putting into words everything that we're just about to go through. And astute observations. This opens up training to new activities that would have been impossible with the first story that we had. And so what you guys are expressing here about discomfort and stuff relates to our model here. It has created within each one of us, as we've watched this, a desire for resolution. We need something to change here. This cannot stay the same. So that desire for resolution has been sparked and has opened us up for the kind of training activities that Kim was just describing. Leah, yes, you could create a start, stop, continue activity after seeing this vignette. Excellent. See, already you're thinking in terms of how can I use this story now to like really draw in the learner and give them an opportunity to self-discover what I am trying to train them to do. Stacy, there were some subplots like, why did the manager diss whoever was giving him a task? Yeah, right. Why was he talking to his manager about like that, right? Good. So there's all these little very gray kind of areas in life, right? And if we can get our finger on the pulse of what's really happening out there and bring those into our story, the more people are going to say, whoever designed this, man, they get me. They know what's going on at this place. They're not just presenting to me this squeaky clean environment where everything goes right. Giselle, to give learners both videos to compare what they should do, what they don't. So Giselle, thanks for bringing that up, because perhaps there is a place for that first video, but it's not at the beginning. So because if we give away everything at the very beginning, we are a bit, dare I say, disrespectful of the learner's ability to observe, critically think, and solve problems. Let me share with you what I mean by that. So they've just encountered this story, and it's followed by this question. And you're welcome to put into the chat what you might answer here. That's correct, Alana. That's correct. Yeah, showing the end result after you've already given them opportunities to critically think, after they have already, but really as you're going through the training, you'll see the story is getting resolved, and it's being resolved by the training. So there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just, how do you think? How do you feel Natalia feels? Why do you think she feels this way? And what would you say here? Okay, so if you were to choose A, then you'd receive some feedback. Is Natalia really afraid? No, she didn't express fear in her talk with Colin. In fact, she said it's not about fear. What is a more likely reason? And so we'll answer what you guys are saying here. C, she doesn't believe Colin has heard her. From her reaction, it appears that she feels Colin isn't paying attention to what she's saying. What might Colin do? So click on that. How might Colin listen and respond? Okay, so it's not immediately clear, right? Okay, so if he were to, you'll notice that A and C are closed and B is open, right? Yes, Colin can, A and C sound like plausible answers. So yes, Colin can demonstrate active listening by asking a question that invites Natalia to talk more about it. He can ask an open-ended questions and acknowledge how she's feeling. And the training continues on like this, using the story as the means of training people, asking them questions about what happened. And you could have many more slides like this to make sure that each action on the action list is covered, because Colin is in conflict with every single action on that action list. So now you have, because of conflict gives us a gift. And how would you put into words the benefits of conflict in a story? Now that you've kind of seen a few examples, what would you say the benefits of conflict in a story are?
I'm typing, and I think it's better to just say this one. I'm real big on making sure that people have what my work calls skin in the game. So at this point, if they're working to solve the conflict and become part of the story, then maybe when in the same situation, they can do it again.
Yes. Wonderful way to put that. I like that. Skin in the game. Skin in the game. That's a great way to put it, Alana. Stacy says engagement, like I'm involved here. Yeah. Molly, time to reflect on our own actions as well as the characters. And that's one of the attributes of storytelling, is that it acts like a flight simulator. Whether we like it or not, we get into the action ourselves when we're reading a story, watching a movie, seeing a video like this. We get into the action ourselves and we immediately apply it to our own situations. Leah, just excitement. Yeah, I mean, this is cool. I've never had a course like this. And Giselle, it makes it more memorable. So if I were to put into a concise way the benefit of conflict, and you guys are completely right. I would say emotional input. The benefit of conflict is it provides the emotional input. We're so used to providing the intellectual input. But without the emotional input, it's very hard to integrate new knowledge and skills. It's very hard to make decisions. It's impossible, actually, to make decisions without some sort of emotional input. And because of that advantage of conflict, it does make things more memorable. It does make things more actionable. It does put the learner in the place where they are like thinking, applying everything to their own situations. So what you just saw in this very brief training experience was a story followed by a reflect question, followed by a solve question, followed by feedback. And notice that the feedback, the first three, so we're providing a story, they're observing it, right? We haven't told them how to do anything yet, right? We're showing them a conflict story. That after that, reflect and solve, it's all them. It's all them. We're not telling them to do anything. We're just giving them opportunities to self-discover what we're training them to do. The feedback comes at the end, right? And that is where they get guidance based on their answers in the solving. Comes at the end. But so often, training has flipped that to where we tell, test, test. But here, it's flipped. They get to practice themselves, they get to get their hands on it, and then they get feedback. Yes, Giselda.
Can you review again the solve portion of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
So here is the story that we saw between Colin and Natalia. Here is the reflect question. And the reflect question, I encourage you to like use something that will trigger that emotional remembrance. You know, how did somebody in there feel? How do you think the manager feels about his review right now? You know, something that will help them reflect on, you know, did you see anything unusual here? And then the solving, when you ask a solve question, you are asking them to make a choice, or maybe it's a free form text box where they can type in their answers, where they are having to review options and make judgment calls on what is the best response or what is the best choice. Make each of those options plausible. And if there's a resource out there for like a job aid or something that is out there in the job space, include a link to the job aid on that solve question so they can consult it and use it to answer the question. And then they'll feel a lot more comfortable out there in the workspace also to use it and answer a real question. Does that help, Giselda? Is that good?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we saw feedback, which gives more than just incorrect or you're right. Next, you know, that is really your opportunity to provide training, right? I might include a picture of Colin, you know, doing that, a picture of Colin and Natalia in the feedback. I often will do that where the story kind of continues, but it's like ending number 2. And so you can see how they are solving things one by one. The story itself is getting resolved through the training. Stacey, yes.
I was going to say, I have a conflict just based on like things that we're taught. So we're taught anytime we ask a question, there should only be one right answer. But in this situation, because we're trying to extract emotion, it's okay in the solve situation for all three of those, because it's not a test question. We're not assessing, you know, retention or whatever. It's okay for all three of those to be possible answers.
Plausible, but not all correct.
Okay.
Plausible, but not correct. So I would say they should sound like they could be right answers. And they did, because some of you guys were selecting things that were incorrect answers. But it should align. Now you're aligning with the action list. These are things that you actually want people to do. And if they're choosing the wrong choice, you've written some great multiple choice questions. And those are opportunities for them to learn, because that incorrect feedback can provide further clarification. So excellent question. And then Stacy, is the reflect question always feeling related? Not always, but make it something that is not necessarily correct or incorrect. You know, it could be pretty general. Hey, what did you notice about this? You know, it could be, they could type in their answer, or it could be a multiple choice. Excellent. We have 3 more minutes. I'm going to open it up to more questions, but I do want to share with you some things that are coming up at the School of Story Design. You can go to schoolofstorydesign.com courses. You can scan this QR code to get there as well. I'm super excited about the instructional story design experience. Now, some of you have already taken the instructional story design workshop. That's cool. This, you might not want to take this again. It is a completely different experience. It's a blended experience where we'll be having live meetings throughout this 6 to 8 week period. A lot of it is self-paced. Some of the best e-learning I have ever laid my eyes on is in this experience. I'm working with a designer and she's phenomenal. The pricing right now, because it's so early, it starts in April, is very low. And if you have not completed the instructional story design workshop, which is not being offered anymore, and you want to be certified as an instructional story designer, which also involves one-on-one mentorship, then this will be the first step for you, the first phase. The experience, I'm so excited about it. It's gonna be great. If you use Beyond, I do 2 workshops. One is a entry level, which is this one, Beyond Story Production. It's not entry level, it's a high level, but it's the easier of the 2. And then there's a Beyond Advanced course as well. So you can find that on the courses page. We have such a great time together in that one. This is one of my favorite ones, the story-based virtual training. So if you design or deliver virtual training, facilitate virtual training, you've got to take this one. It is just so fun. We have such a great time. It's a small group. You design and deliver a virtual-based experience to the rest of the group. You get feedback on it. It's 2 sessions. It's really great. And then lastly, if you are an L&D leader and you're interested in advocating for your department, pitching ideas, sharing data, or just want to communicate with your team better, or you're an aspiring leader, the cohort is for you. It's a small group. We go through, one of our story design coaches leads this. You go through the process of discovering and designing, and then at the end doing a capstone project where you actually deliver your story. I think you'll really, really love it. And then last but not least, the book. So many of you have that already. If you want to take a sneak peek into the book, you can scan the QR code in the upper right screen. That's what's coming up. So Melissa just ordered the book, yay. Okay, so let's answer some of the, yeah, you know what, Giselda, let's get a quick screenshot of everybody with their book. Come on, let's just do it. And then I will answer those other questions. Okay, so we got this. Everybody who has the book, go ahead and hold it up to the screen. Let me get the screenshot thingy. Do your thing, do your thing. Okay, there we go. Okay, there are a few of us. Giselda, where'd you go? Are you holding yours up? Thank you. Okay, let me answer some of these last questions. Oh, thank you, Leah. That's fine, Stacy. Leah, how extensive does the conflict need to be? Can it be a simple objection? So when you are putting your character, so if it was a sales situation, you would the conflict would revolve around how that salesperson responds to that objection, excuse me. So the client may give some pushback. The sales executive doesn't handle it in the best way, in the way that you're training them to handle it. So that would be the source of the conflict, really. It comes directly from the action list. Story production is a great course, Melissa. I'm so glad. And yay, I'm glad you got the book. I'm glad you've started the book. Okay, Katerina, I'm glad you had the book. Working from home today. Yours is a Kindle edition. That's cool, Leah. And I'm glad that made sense to you. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. This recording will be available. If you want to see past recordings, let me give you a link to. I actually would really love to get your input on what the next roundtable should be. So that first one is a link to the February roundtable. So you can go ahead and register for that. The second link is, what is our next topic? You tell me. I would like for you to know, I would like to hear from you what you would like to dig in a little bit further on. Oh, thank you, Shamail. Yeah, The Mysterious Disappearance of Story is a 30-minute movie that I created in Beyond. Okay, is that the link to that, Shamail? Awesome. Cool. And then Melissa, thank you. Thank you so much. Character development. We focused on conflict this time. Maybe we can focus on relatable characters. That's a cool idea, Leah. Please put that in the put that in the survey. All right, guys. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will stay on just a little bit longer so you have time to click on those links. And if you have any further questions, I'm happy to answer those too. Otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Keep telling stories.
So I have a quick question on, on the process, the last with the feedback. Would you always have the instruct be in the feedback, or can some of that instruct sit outside the feedback? And the reason I'm asking that is because a lot of the SMEs want a lot more information in the instruct portion than is like feasible on a feedback slide, if you like.
Well, I don't view feedback as a pop-up.
Sure.
I view it as anything that comes in response to a person's choice. And that could go to several slides. I mean, that could be several layers, The feedback could be more questions that lead them down a path to get down to the core of what you're training them to do. So no, it doesn't have to be relegated to a little rectangle that pops up over top of the.
But you're still categorizing it as the feedback. That's the
yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
I categorize it that way, and there may be some situations where a bit of context is needed before you jump into the story. I understand that. I acknowledge that there are times when you do need that. But yeah, I think that getting that story in as quick as possible
Mm.
means you're getting them closer to practicing what you want them to do earlier in the course. Yeah, Alana, that's kind of layering that feedback and drilling down until you get to the core of it. And a
And then-
story, I mean, you can have a really, really long action list, and that can cover, a story can cover a huge action list.
And the other question I had is kind of related to a project I'm working on at the moment, and it's not so much it's not a system training, but it kind of is. It's where, you know, it's data classification, right? So they're using software to classify the data. So, you know, we've come up with some conflict. We've got some relatable characters in there. I think where I'm kind of struggling with is not so much the reflect question, but making the resolve question a little bit less kindergarten.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Have you got any tips or any ideas that might help with that?
So can you give an example of one of the things on your action list where you're struggling with that kindergarten answer?
So one of them is to be able to accurately label the business records.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, from my perspective, it's like, well, it's in the software there, you click sensitivity and you choose which one you want. So it's kind of like, how do we not make it, I mean, obviously we want them to do that, but there's not many choices on that. Do you know what I mean? Where you can go wrong.
Yeah. So where is the problem of, is this a problem? Or is this just a new system and you're
It's
trying
a
to train them on
new
it?
system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are times when just practice can be
Okay.
effective, where you are saying, where on the screen do you click?
Okay. And that's
To
the route I
categorize.
was going. I wasn't sure if that was okay. Okay, that works then.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And if they
Fantastic.
get it wrong, awesome. They've learned something, you know.
Sure.
If they get
Another
it right,
thing,
then yeah, you're exactly right. That's where you're going to click to categorize it. You don't.
Brilliant. Okay.
so
Mhm.
Phil, I'm in a very technical company,
Okay.
and sometimes, and I don't know if anyone else does this or if it's proper to do this, but when I ask the question, they'll have to draw something from the resources in order to answer it. So that will physically, like the question will say, use this in the resource guide to answer the question about what they should do next. And that puts the person in the procedure,
Sure.
and then they're more likely to use it again in the future.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
Yeah, that will work because they have got a policy around this. So it would be great to have the policy in the resources, and then they can read off that and say, well, how do I categorize this? So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And if the policy isn't cutting it, you know, even just creating a job aid that
Sure.
reflects, I mean, so many policies are like,
Yeah.
don't do
Oh,
this,
yeah.
don't do that, don't, they're not action list worthy. You have to like interpret them.
No. Brilliant.
Oh,
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very
you're
much.
welcome.
Thank you, Rance.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Leah.
you.
It's always nice to
Take
have
care.
you.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
You guys too. All right. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for the bonus content.